Welcome back to Be the Good with Kate, the show that inspires each of us to see how we have the power to make a difference all around us. Each episode highlights an individual doing good in the world while following their passions, good for their own souls and for others. I get so excited about sharing each and every episode of Be the Good with you, and I hope you enjoy these people and stories. If you're new here, welcome, and if you are returning, thank you so much for your support. I'm so glad you found Be the Good with Kate and would love to hear from you. If you're finding value in these episodes, I invite you to share with someone who could also use this dose of good news, or tag me on social with your favorite quote from the episode. Every share, subscriber, review, and comment helps me to share these guests' wonderful work to more people. Thank you for your help in this. Now, on to this week's episode. Let's spread a little more goodness in the world.
Today's guest on Be the Good with Kate is Dr. John DeGarmo, and he is the director of the Foster Care Institute, founder and national development director of Never Too Late, residential group home for boys, author of multiple books. His TEDx talk, Children in Need, Children Ignored, can be found online, and John and his wife are recipients of the Good Morning America Ultimate Hero Award, the Up With People Everyday Hero Award, and their city's Citizens of the Year Award, among many other honors. Now, this is just a tiny bit of information on John, as he is going to fill in the gap on a lot more, including the fact that he is a foster parent himself, and his rather unique background that includes something that I know well called Up With People that I have to make sure he brings up here today. So, Dr. John DeGarmo, thanks so much for being here.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you so much.
You bet. So I give a little bit of information, but please tell everybody more about who you are and what you do in your own words.
Oh, thanks for asking. So yeah, Dr. John DeGarmo, founder and director of the Foster Care Institute. I really never planned on being a foster parent. I believe so many of the myths and misconceptions that are associated with that. So many people believe. And, I met my first wife, who's from Australia. We met traveling the world, singing and dancing and Up With People many years back, fell in love, got married. And our first child died of a condition called anencephaly, or some pronounce it anencephaly. It's a condition where the brain or skull never truly forms. And my wife was in labor for 92 hours. And that really led me to a time of anger. I ignored my grief, and I dived into anger. I was just angry. How can this happen? How can this happen? So years later, we moved back to the U.S. to pursue my dream career at that time. And I ended up teaching in a rural high school setting in middle Georgia. A lot of kids coming through my classroom who had issues of attendance, issues of behavior, academic issues. And I kept asking myself, what's going on? Why so many in this small town? And then I started meeting a lot of the families, and I recognized, you know what? It just starts in the home. And for some of these kids, it's generational apathy, generational poverty, generational abuse. At that point, my wife and I had 3 healthy children, and we talked about, hey, how do we help these kids? We lost our first. We are here to serve others. And I recognize, this generational poverty, this generational apathy, this generational abuse is placing so many children in harm. 5 million children in America every year experience domestic violence in their own house, which means it happens in every single community. And I also recognize that then, like right now, as you and I are having this discussion, there's a child out there right now who's really hoping or praying that someone's going to help them. So I went to my wife and said, you know what, we've lost our first child. We have other kids now. How can we help these children in my classroom? So that led to the discussion of foster parenting, which led to the doctorate and all the books and, traveling the nation and globe, working with agencies. And I'm really driven each day to make the system a better one, not only for the children, but for the foster parents, the birth parents, and for society in general.
Amazing. Did you know much about the foster care system before you ended up at this school?
No, I believed so many of the myths and misconceptions attached to it. I believed the kids were bad kids. I believe the foster parents were crazy people. That part's kind of true. You got to be a little bit crazy to bring children in your house with issues of anxiety, anger related issues, sleep management. We've had as many as 11 kids in our house at the same time because there's not enough home. And that's not a normal lifestyle. It's not a normal lifestyle. I didn't know anything. So, those classes prepared us somewhat. But there's, the classes and paperwork and reading books can only prepare you for so much. And then you get that child in your home, that first placement. I recognized in 20 minutes of my first placement that, oh my gosh, I'm not ready for this. I'm not prepared for this. What is this child saying and doing? It was tough.
Yeah. Wow. And tell the audience, because this is just fascinating from your bio too, how many children you've had in your house now over the years.
We've had over 60 children come through our home over the years, as young as 27 hours old, 27 hours old, and as old as 18. We've had as many as 11 at the same time. We had 7 in diapers at one point, which was very messy, let me tell you. And we've had them as little as a day and as long as 2 years, and everything in between.
Wow. Wow. Now, how did the Foster Care Institute come to be in your life with all of this?
So I finished my doctorate on foster care because my doctorate was, I was teaching while becoming a foster parent, and I recognized my fellow teachers don't know anything about this. I didn't. So I thought, how can I bring together caseworkers, foster parents, and educators all together to help the children who are slipping through the cracks? 55% of youth in foster care, when they transition out of the system, 55% drop out of school. 65% end up homeless. 75% end up incarcerated. Only 6% go to college. Only 2% earn a 4-year degree. So I thought, how can I bring these educators, teachers, and foster parents together to help the kids? And then when I finished the dissertation, the doctorate, I thought, you know what, I'm loving writing. So I kept writing books. And then a lot of agencies said, hey, can you help us? And that started the Foster Care Institute. I wanted a one-stop shop, if you will, for all things foster care, bringing it in from a couple different perspectives. All the data and the statistics and that kind of thing. Also the real life personal experience of someone who's lived it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year as a foster parent.
Wow. Your path is, interesting in of itself, beyond interesting, but now how has it been having your biological children there and the children you've adopted, your whole family unit, but now having the kind of transience of having other people be a part of their family for periods of time? How has that, I'm just curious, I guess the question in here is, how has it affected or helped your children to grow or your family to grow? Anything to comment on there?
I hear a lot that many prospective foster parents are afraid of being foster parents because of their own children, how the kids coming into care, into the home, placed in the home might affect their family dynamics. For me, it's been wonderful. Beside the point that we've adopted 3 children from the foster care system. Now we've experienced four failed adoptions, which was hard for all of us. So my family's doubled in size, but I couldn't do without my kids, quite frankly. There've been times where little kids been placed in our home and they're filled with confusion. They're scared. They're frightened. They don't know why they're here at our house. They don't understand. Maybe their parents made poor choices. It's a very scary time being placed into a foster care home. So my kids have come around these children, wrapped around them, and and play therapy has been amazing for them. They treat them like their own siblings. Have there been times when it's been tough? Oh yeah, sure, absolutely. But I think my children all have learned a very, very valuable lesson, a couple lessons. First of all, of serving others. Now, none of my children may ever be a foster parent. I don't know, but I firmly believe that all of them are going to lead a life of serving others in some way, helping others in some way. They have seen more than their peers what abuse looks like, what neglect looks like, abandonment looks like. They have lived with that, and they have such a caring, compassionate heart. My kids are always at the forefront, I have noticed, of helping others, of volunteering, of standing up to bullying, of befriending those who really need a friend. So for us, it's been a very positive experience. And again, it has been tough at times. And sometimes my kids have said, Dad, that one boy's driving me crazy. Yeah, me too. But you know what? They need that unconditional love that we can give them.
Well, that's absolutely incredible. And talk about just selfless acts here. Those are some, I love calling them good news moments, the things we hear along the way. What about now through some of the children that you fostered? Have you gotten to hear any stories later on, of them finding their way in life in a positive way?
Yes. I'll point to one. I'll point to one in particular. Just talked to her actually last night on the phone. She was born in Romania, and her parents were killed at age 9, and 3 separate families throughout the United States adopted her and then unadopted her over the course of 9 years. She was rehomed basically, and during those 9 years, those 3 families was abused in some way, um, just tragically so. And so when she came to our house at 17 years of age, um, after 3 families said, "Well, we'll teach you English. We'll love you forever," and then abusing her in some way, she had a lot of questions. She didn't trust us, and she shouldn't. She shouldn't have. And now she's in her early 30s, married to a wonderful man, 2 beautiful children that we get to love over. She's worked in child welfare for so many years. We helped her get through college. She's doing great. There's a couple others I can point to like that. Sadly, many of the kids, we don't know what happened, because when they come to our home, sometimes the birth parents are filled with their own guilt, their own grief, their own anger, their own denial. And we are a part of that, of their life, that they don't want to remember. They don't want to acknowledge. They just want to get past. So when the kids go back to their home through reunification, there are those times some birth parents say, you know what, we don't want to talk about that anymore. Let's move on. So we don't get to have communication, which is hard for us, because when their birthdays come along, or holidays coming along, or things like that, we're thinking about them, remembering them, and that can be a time of grief for us. Because when they come to our house, I believe that children in foster care need 3 things: they need stability, they need safety, but what they need more than anything else is unconditional love. They need us to love them with all of our hearts. So when they do leave, yeah, our hearts break and we grieve and we cry, but I think it's a gift. We're giving these children a gift of our heart, because we might be the first person who's ever loved them in some way. So I try to take some solace in that.
Yeah, absolutely amazing. I was adopted as a baby, and I always had a very different experience than, with the foster care system. I feel like there's almost 2 separate entities with it, right? There's the kid who gets adopted right from the hospital and doesn't have to go through the grief and the abuse and those traumatic experiences. And then there are the kids who it happens later on and they have this whole history. What has been maybe the most notable thing that has helped you get through working with the children who do have these pasts, who get brought to you and you just have to, like you said, love them unconditionally? Are there any, quotes or sayings? Are there any rituals? Or I don't know, rituals is the right word, but like things that you always do to help get in that frame of mind of, no matter what their background, no matter what the instance right now, I can love unconditionally on them.
So when a child comes in our home and place in our home, there is a time of anxiety. Certainly anxiety for the kids. Again, they're confused, they're afraid. I want you to imagine a 7-year-old child who is removed from a home suddenly without any explanation, from moms, dads, sometimes siblings, pets, animals, stuff, and toys, everything they know, and placed in a strange home, and said, "This is it. This is where we're gonna stay for a while." And they're filled with so many questions. Why am I here? When do I go home? When do I see mommy again? Did I do something wrong? Is it my fault? Who are these strange people? What are their rules? So and they cry themselves to sleep so many nights. For foster parents, it's also a time of anxiety. What's this placement going to be like? How is it going to fit with our family? What's the family dynamics? How long will they be with us for? What's their personality like? But I think I keep in mind that this is a child that needs help. This is a child who is really struggling. This is a child in crisis. This is a child who's been abused in some fashion. And this is a child who's going to be very, very scared when they come to our home. And what they need more than anything else is us to simply be patient, be understanding, be compassionate. For me, there's a biblical verse, Matthew 25:35, which says, "For I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. I was naked, you gave me clothing." To me, that's these children. That's these children. And I think back to the death of our first child, and I recognize there's a miracle of birth here. And I've been blessed, and my wife's been blessed, and our kids have been blessed. But there's so many children right now who need someone to say, "You know what? I'll help you. I'll help you out. I'll love you." Even though you might be angry with me, you might be confused, you might be resistant. We've had a lot of kids in our house who come to our home and they've been resistant to us because they can't trust an adult, because they've been hurt so many times. So it takes time. There's a lot of patience on everybody's behalf. But you know what? It's been the most rewarding thing I've done. Hardest thing, but the most rewarding thing.
Absolutely unbelievable. You've done so much to help others. So now, has anyone ever come to you and said, I want to do something, whether it's foster care related or something else, but I don't know where to start. I don't know how to start. As has someone come to you, or if someone came to you, what would you say to them?
All the time.
Yeah.
I would say if you're married or in a partnership or relationship, the first thing you have to do is talk about it with that partner, because it's again, it's challenging. So you both have got to be on board. You both have to be on board, because if one really wants to be a foster parent and the other one doesn't, it's not going to work. The next thing I would ask, if you have your own children, you talk about your kids as well, because it's a lifestyle change. It's completely different. When you have a child in your house who is in crisis in the middle of the night, 2 o'clock in the morning, it affects everybody in the house. People often say, how do you sleep? Or when do you sleep? I say, well, I'll sleep when I'm dead, because right now there's no sleep. That first child comes, they're so confused. They're going to be crying themselves to sleep. They might lash out. They might have anger management issues, sleeping disorders, eating disorders. So you got to talk about your whole family, make sure your whole family's ready. And then if everybody's ready, you don't have to be rich. You don't have to have a big house. You don't have to be married. Just have to have a real heart to help these children. But at the same time, not everybody can be a foster parent, but everybody can help in some way. There's so many ways people can help without having the children in your home at the same time.
And tell us a little bit about your books for people who want to learn more about foster care and about your experiences with it.
Well, I've written several, and I started writing those books because when I did my dissertation, I recognized there's not many books out there about foster care. So I wanted to not only give practical solutions, but I also wanted to write about what it's like being a foster parent. So I wrote a book called Fostering Love, One Foster Parent's Journey, where I wanted to share with those people who were foster parents and people who are thinking about being foster parents. It's a memoir of my first 10 years as a foster parent, the highs, the lows, the joys, the heartbreaks, the ridiculousness of it all, the insanity sometimes, just a fun book, but a heartbreaking book. And I wanted to be a book for people to pick up and say, hey, you know what, maybe I want to do this. Or foster parents to say, you know what, this is exactly how I feel, and share with their other friends. This is what I do. There's the book Faith in Foster Care for people of faith. There's the book The Foster Care Survival Guide, or the Foster Parenting Manual. I've tried to write a number of books from different perspectives, just for society in general, to better understand it, and practical resources and tools for those who are working in the system itself.
Amazing. Well, I'm looking forward to I work with the New York Foundling, which is a foster care and children's charity here in New York City. And I'm looking forward to sharing this information with them as well. If they haven't already found your books, which they probably have, but just in case, I'll look forward to that. And John, we're going to talk about where to find you online. But first, I just have to ask you, please tell us a little bit about your years with Up With People, because I knew about Up With People back in the 90s. It was a big deal when they came to town. So can you just give us a little moment to tell about that?
Sure. So 1990 was the year I traveled, and I was with, maybe about 120 others from 27 countries. Ours was it was a performing group where for people between the ages of 18 to 28, and performing and service oriented. So we would grow into a city, and we would do a day of performing, and then usually a day of serving in the community in some fashion, and then go to another city, another state, other country. We all traveled the world. Our cast was interesting. We had the very first Soviets join, and this was in 1990. So the Soviet Union was crumbling, and we had some Soviets with us. That was fascinating. We had an East German with us, which was fascinating. And I met my wife, who's from Australia, and she was dating a guy from Germany at some point, and I was really interested in a girl from Sweden. But we recognized, hey, we both speak the same language. Maybe it'd be easier if we get together. So.
Well, thank you. I had to hear a little bit about that. John, please tell everybody where they can find you online, find your books, find more about what you are doing and foster care resources.
Oh, thanks for asking. The Foster Care Institute, a quick search online, Foster Care Institute, or Dr. John DeGarmo, foster care expert. And there's everything there for those who are considering becoming a foster parent, for those who are foster parents, social workers, caseworkers. And I just want to add this if I can. I said it earlier, there's 5 million children experience domestic violence in our nation every year. There's 300,000 children victims of human trafficking. There's 500,000 kids in foster care system. There's 800,000 children missing every year. All of this to mean that as we're having this conversation right now, there are children out there who are being abused, abandoned, neglected right where we live. And sometimes within our own family that we don't want to recognize. I call human trafficking America's ugly secret. It's horrific. We don't want to talk about it because it makes us feel uncomfortable, so we ignore it. And that's kind of like foster care in general. We don't want to talk about these issues because it makes us feel uncomfortable. So whether you feel you can be a foster parent yourself and have the children placed in your home, or help in some other way, there's so many ways each of us can help a child in crisis in some way, whether it is providing backpacks filled with hygiene items or school supplies at the beginning of the year, whether it's adopting a foster family in the holiday season and helping with gifts for them, whether it's being a mentor or tutor, whether it's if you have your own small business and hiring them to teach them important work skills or social skills or living skills. There are so many different ways. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, that we can help a child in crisis in some way. And I think we're in a time right now where that's pivotal. We're seeing a rise in teenage depression. We're seeing a rise in teenage suicide. Teenage suicide is up 51% right now over the last couple of years. And children are in need more than ever. Children flooding over the border. We're seeing opiate epidemic, where the children, their parents are dying or being incarcerated. There's such a need right now for someone to say, you know what, I'm going to help a child in crisis in some way.
I'm so glad you talked about some of the tangible ways that people can help too, because I think that often we get overwhelmed with that idea of like, well, I feel like I can't do everything, so then I don't know what to do. I won't do anything. So I'm so glad you talked about some of those ways. And there are organizations all over the country, and I'm sure you talk about some extra resources and putting people together on the website. And if people want to reach out to you, should they go through your website contact form or email, or what's best?
Pick up the phone, give me a call. The phone number's there. Shoot me an email, find me on social media. Absolutely. And you're right. There are many organizations, not just nationwide, but in every single community as well. So if you don't know where to start, if you don't want to come to the Foster Care Institute, just pick up the phone or do a search online for your local child welfare agency in your community. Say, hey, how can I help? And they'll connect you.
Dr. John DeGarmo, thank you so much for being here. And more importantly, thank you for what you're doing to help so many children and families.
My pleasure. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thanks so much for listening to Be the Good with Kate Chericello. Whether you're listening on YouTube or via podcast, it would mean the world if you liked, subscribed, and or left a review. You heard about the good? Now go out and be the good in your life this week. If you have stories of good news that need to be shared, please send me a message. Thanks again, and have a great week.